Welcome back to Spartan Up Podcast. We are here in Tahoe, beautiful sunny Tahoe, but this interview was done. Colonel Nye was hanging around with me when I interviewed this guy, Jim Gregory, at Westpoint. We did a bunch of great interviews at Westpoint. What's unique about this guy, what we're going to learn from this guy is he fails over and over and over, not once. He fails at everything he does, but somehow he turns that into a success. And I think many of us, maybe not Sefra, many of us fail in life and we dig ourselves a hole. Well, this guy's going to show us how to dig out.
And the great thing is he's going to show us how to get out this Tuesday. Every Tuesday on Spartan Up Podcast, we have incredible people who've achieved success in all different walks of life. They're not all athletes. They're not all business people. A lot of them are. But we tap into the Spartan mindset. What is it about the way they do things that our listeners and viewers can tap into and apply to their own lives?
Who is we?
We're so happy. We are so happy, the royal we, to have Dr. L on the show this week, and Johnny Waite, of course, Mr. Joe DeSena, myself, Sefra Alexandra, our producer, Marion, and our assistant, Andrea. And with that, you guys should...
listen to the podcast, but we're going to be coming back, and then we're going to give you some unbelievable insights to what Jim Gregory says. And Tuesday's not the only day we do it.
No, you will find those insights every Tuesday here. And then Wednesdays, you'll get me on Spartan Mind, where I kind of get into your head a little bit, help you with some of maybe that negative thinking pattern that might be keeping you stuck. We've got it all rounded out. Monday's on the way.
Spartan
one
all
day.
the time.
Yeah,
Before you know it, it's 7 days a week.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Duke Cannon. Visit DukeCannon.com right now to get 15% off your first order with the promo code SPARTAN. Free shipping on orders over $35.
All right, we are here for Spartan Up Podcast. We got a real good one right now. We're doing a whole series at Westpoint, and because we're at Westpoint, we're fortunate enough to hang out with Jim Gregory, former Green Beret, which is a big deal, and former Olympian with an asterisk, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
What's your story? Where do you come from?
Where did I come from? I was born in Virginia. I grew up
and is
all
that
over
a
the
straight
place.
shot to being like most kids in Virginia end up in the military? Is that
No, I don't think that's it. I mean, we moved around. My dad worked in the government and moved around. I guess my story with all this starts when I was in college and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And I thought I wanted to be a doctor.
What age? This
is 20.
20?
Yeah.
And you must be a super athlete at this point.
I swam. I was a pretty good athlete at that time. I swam at James Madison University. Did okay.
5 hours a day?
It was a lot. It was waking up early I was probably in the water more than most people.
I mean, it's resiliency training, right? Because I know a bunch of swimmers, and it's 4 or 5 hours every day.
I always said that swimmers you've got to be a friend with pain, and when you get in the water, I mean, you've got to be able to drive through it. It's definitely what taught me to drive through pain, not the bad pain, but just pushing yourself beyond where you ever thought you would be able to.
So you're sitting there. You're 20 years old. You're fit.
Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out what the heck I want to do with my life, and the Army recruiter called me, and so I entertained the call and said, you know what, I'll talk to you. I'll come talk to you.
Calls you out. I'm just turning my phone off. It was buzzing. Hang on. But why does an Army recruiter? They call randomly? They call people?
I think they do. I made some sort of call list.
I don't think that ever happens. I think your father might have called the guy to call you.
I don't know.
You haven't thought about it?
I didn't have a job, so I'm just an unaware kid at this point.
Okay.
And so they call me, and I said, okay, I'll go check it out. And they, I take the test that they have. It's the ASVAB test, the entry, and of course the recruiter says, oh my gosh, you can have any job you want.
Really?
And I said, what? I think I want to be a doctor. And he's like, tell you what, I'll have you working side by side with the doctor. I'm like, well, that sounds pretty good. Yeah. I don't have anything else going on. Actually, I did have a internship with the local hospital. They offered me the graveyard shift as a nurse's aide. So that didn't sound as fun. So the Army won out over that.
Sure.
But
so you had done 4 years of college at this point.
I was 2 years in.
Or you're 2 years in.
Yeah.
Super swimmer, and you're thinking you wanted to be a doctor.
Right, and with about a 2.5 in
GPA.
GPA. So,
got it.
Yeah.
All right, so an Army says, "Oh my God, you're the smartest guy we've ever seen."
Absolutely, they drew me in, and stars light up in my eyes, and I enlisted, went to basic training. I did pretty well there, and so I came back and started the ROTC program at James Madison, and finished up a couple more years there. Did well with that, and at that point, the whole doctor thing went to the side. I realized I didn't like being in hospitals, and I wanted to fly helicopters. Right.
All right.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm charging ahead with that.
How old at this point?
Still 20. So this is all happening pretty fast.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
gave up a scalpel for a helicopter.
Yeah,
within a year.
I even got, I went to the advanced camp they have, and then I got to go and hang out with an aviation unit that had just gotten back from Desert Storm. A bunch of Apache helicopters. These guys were, just badasses. I mean, and the Apache helicopter was pretty new at that time. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. So that is what I wanted to do. Matte black finish. Right. Yeah. I mean, it looks like a wasp coming out of the sky, and it's amazing. And so that's what I was going to do. And then I got back to school, and they assessed me and said, "You're going into the field artillery." So, it's like, all right. So
now the truth about that exam.
And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to the field artillery. And at that point, I said, well, I guess I'm going to go into special forces, special operations. That's just
what's important to note, though, is. Did you get frustrated?
No, it was just...
because I go back to this idea that if you were in the pool 4 or 5 hours a day, maybe you just start to become resilient.
Absolutely.
I think you just deal with whatever life throws at you.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like that's been my whole life. I mean, I had some plans. I don't think I'm the greatest planner for, here's how my life is going to go. I don't ever feel like I was that way, but everything that's life's thrown at me so far, it's
gone deal with it
pretty well.
Whatever obstacle comes at you. So you go into field artillery.
Well, sort of. So I go into field artillery. I go to the basic course. It's at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and being a good runner, being a good swimmer, someone recognized that and said, "Hey, we want to put you in charge of the guys going to Ranger School." Because I was like, "I'm going to Ranger School. That's just the route I'm going to take." And so I'm in charge of this group of like 30 guys that are going to go to Ranger School.
For people out there listening that don't know all the lingo in the military.
Yeah.
Ranger School is you're starting to get to the top of the pyramid.
Yeah, it's the Army's premier leadership school. So Rangers are special operations soldiers. Ranger School is run by the School of Infantry, and it's all about teaching Army leaders, whether they're NCOs or officers, how to be the best at that.
So that's where you wanted to go.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to be around the best. Yeah.
And any chance you're going to make it in your mind, or like what are you thinking?
No, there was no chance I wasn't going to make it.
Got it. Because that's the way your mind works.
Yeah. No, right. I mean, and so the story of me, my asterisk, is
regarding the Olympics.
Regarding the Olympics is. I'm there at Fort Sill training to be a field artillery officer, leading these guys through a course to get them ready for Ranger School, and there's guys that can't swim, and you have to pass a swim test at Ranger School. So I'm like, all right, we're going to the pool. I'm going to teach you guys how to swim, and teach you all the drills that you need to be proficient at. And so we go there, and I'm teaching them, and I get to know the lifeguards because you're talking to people, and they're like, hey, there's this guy on post. He does this sport called modern pentathlon, and he's looking for people that can run and swim. And would you be interested?
You didn't know the sport at the time.
I had no idea what the sport was,
right.
And I said, sure, whatever. Give my name to him. Be happy to talk to him. And so we ended up talking. I went for a few runs with him. Got in the pool, swam some laps with him, and he said, you know what? I'd love for you to come down to San Antonio and try out, meet the coach. And so I said, sure, I'll go down there and try out, but I got to do this Ranger School thing. And then after that, I'm happy to, we'll see what happens. Yeah. So I went down there. They said, yeah, you're a pretty good run swimmer. And the other events are fencing, shooting, and equestrian.
Those you can pick up on the side of
it. Oh, yeah, they're easy. I'd never thought about fencing. Right. I could shoot an M16 is what we were shooting at the time. Yeah. And I'd been on a hayride. So that was the extent of my horse riding, right? Nice. So, but I was like, okay, we'll give it a shot. Yeah. But like I said, going to Ranger School. So I ended up going off to Ranger School, and there, even I got recycled twice in Ranger School. First time I got cellulitis in my knee. Never had, I hadn't even heard of what cellulitis was, but my knees, my leg just started blowing up, and my calf was bigger than my thigh.
By the way, I recently, I was just down at Fort Campbell, and I heard about that same thing happening. So that must be a common.
Yeah, it happened to me, and of course I ignored it. It was painful. I remember the Derby Queen is an obstacle course that you go through there at Fort Benning, and I remember doing it basically on one leg. Because I'm going to hide this at all costs, because I do not want to get recycled.
Sure.
I still remember I hit it all the way through because I got it about halfway through the first phase, and then hit it all the way till we got out. We went to Fort Bliss for the desert phase, and they do feet checks, so just to make sure everyone's feet aren't rotten and falling off. And so you have to take off your boots and show your feet to the medic. And my foot looked like a balloon. And he's like, "Oh, you're going to the hospital." And I was like, "I'll go to the hospital, but I can only be there 48 hours. Less than 48. Then you get recycled." I got to be back. And they were like, "Your leg is about 3 days from being amputated." Yeah. Wow. So I was like, "Well, all right." Then I ended up spending a couple weeks there, and it was fun because they brought all the doctors in to see this is what really bad case of cellulitis looks like.
All right. Yeah. So again, showing signs of resiliency.
Yeah, I just took it as, almost like it sounds bad to say a prison sentence, but to me that was what I was going to do. I was going to pass Ranger School. I didn't really think about, there was no other option for me.
Still young 20s at this point?
Yeah, I was 23 at this time.
23, yeah.
So you get
out of the hospital.
I finally get out of the hospital, get put back into a squad where it was a squad where I was the third Ranger buddy. Normally I have two Ranger buddies, and you kind of bond with that guy. I was the third wheel of this two guys that they weren't clicking themselves, and I didn't click with them, and it was just a rough go. I ended up getting, you get patrols as you're going through Ranger School. So we're out in the desert, and everyone gets a patrol. They get 2 patrols during the field phase. So I was the last guy to get a patrol on my squad. So everyone else either had a go or a no-go, and I ended up getting a no-go. And then the second opportunity I had was the very last patrol before we were coming in. So everyone is thinking food, sleep, they're just marching back. They don't care about anything, and that was my turn to lead, and it didn't go so well for me.
Sure.
So I ended up recycling that phase too, and that was pretty.
At this point, are you tapping out?
It was a low point. Yeah. There was no question about tapping. I wasn't going to tap out, but I was.
But you're questioning.
It's tough at that point. 2 times, and I've been in this course for a long time. And I'm thinking
maybe I'm not.
I'm going to go train for the Olympics, and I'm doing this.
Oh, because your fencing is taking off at this point.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, long and short of it is, I came back, and I'm like, this is what I'm doing, and that point forward, I never failed another patrol. So I made it, I ended up at the very end, they brought me aside and said, "Hey, we're considering you for honor grad." And then they looked at my record and like, "Oh, you're a recycle. You can't be an honor grad." Which was humbling a little bit, but
that's okay.
Yeah, it was great to graduate. All I cared about at that point is putting on a tab and moving on.
Sure.
And then from that point, instead of going to my first unit, I ended up going to this world-class athlete program.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so mid-20s.
Mid-20s.
Well, let's take a break. Why don't we? I want you to show me some of your fencing moves.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff.
And then we'll come back.
All right.
All right, Spartans, we're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back. But right now, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Duke Cannon. And Duke Cannon is a men's grooming company. They've got an array of products, everything from soaps, big brick soaps, to hair gels, to some hand cream for those guys that get bloody knuckles, deodorants, and everything is for today's man, and really for guys who kind of want to be manly men of yesteryear, if you're asking me, because this stuff is the big brick soap, It just has these wonderful smells to it. It makes you think of a barrel of bourbon or even some beer, some woodsy smells. And it really takes you back, kind of, it's military inspired. It goes back to World War II, back to the Korean War kind of time period. From their artwork on all of their products to the actual products themselves, this is real quality and kind of old-time stuff for today's man. Because it's inspired by the military, a portion of their profits go to military charities, including the Honor Flight Network, the Wounded Warrior Amputee Football Team, Canines for Warriors, Military Working Dog Team Support Association. So these guys are really connected to the military. And if you go visit Duke Cannon, that's DukeCannon.com right now, you'll get 15% off your first order with the promo code Spartan. And that's free shipping on orders over $35. So I highly encourage you, Spartans, to go out and check out these products. They're really great. All right. Thanks a lot. Out here.
Now I know why you didn't make it to the Olympics. your fencing skills are not there. So you finally get into Rangers, and you call that guy back up, and
well, I got a Ranger tab.
Yep.
So I'd already been accepted into this world-class athlete program. I committed to them. I said, look, I'll do it as soon as I get through Ranger school. Right. So I ended up going straight to San Antonio where they trained, and just beginning to train. And the funny thing about Ranger School is when you graduate, you're starved, then you eat, then you get starved again when you go out in the field and you eat a little bit. So your body gets to this point where by the time you graduate, it's been starved and it's gone back and forth so many times, and you've lost so much weight. The ammonia smell comes out of from your muscles eating, and so all of a sudden all this food is available. I don't know of anyone that hasn't put on like 15, 20 pounds after Ranger immediately. So I'm going out here to train with a bunch of other guys that are training for the Olympic teams, and I just pork up like a balloon. And but eventually you get into running, you get into a regimen, and that was 1993.
When you're training under the military, like you were, is it more like you don't have to worry about motivation because somebody's making you do your stuff, or is it just like a civilian?
I guess. I mean. For me,
whether you were motivated or not yourself, I'm just wondering: is it like being in Bud's school where they're just pushing you?
Oh, okay. So if you're talking about when you're in Ranger school, or I was in the Q course or any of the dive school, whatever.
They're paying, and are they saying up at 5 a.m.?
Well, yeah, they're telling you when to be up. A lot of the schools I went to, Ranger school, you just have to be up. When I went to the Q course, for example, they just tell you be in formation with all your gear at this time. And it's a little bit on you and your group of guys to be there on time, but there's no one screaming at you. I mean, that's a little bit what I liked about it, is they treat you like adults, but if you don't act like an adult, if you're not responsible, then
you're out.
Yeah, you go.
So you're starting to get in shape.
Getting in shape, and moving along. Come 1996. I got good enough to become the national champion.
Wow.
1996. So I won national championships for modern pentathlon. And they internationally, the sport was shrinking. And so instead of 3 Americans going to the Olympics as a team, they had an international qualification. There was a guy that was actually ranked ahead of me from going to World Cups and whatnot. He did a little bit better. So I ended up, they took the top 32. I was number 36 that year.
Oh.
So I got to go, and I got to hang out in Atlanta. It was 1996.
Well, you just on the
so I went, and there, I hung out at the New Balance house, was our sponsor at the time,
nice.
and had a great time, but I had to watch the competition.
Was there a fire in your belly that said, "I'm coming back"?
Oh my God, yeah. So I was.
You didn't want to be 36 again.
No. I was 26 years old, and I knew I had to get back. And so the Olympics happened. It was a great experience. Had to watch it. I go back to a unit, spent some time at Fort Hood in the 1st Cavalry Division, and then had an opportunity to come back, and. I started, doing much better because obviously I had that first 4 years under my belt, and went on. And long and the short of it is, come 2000, I was 10th in the world at the World Championships. This time they're taking the top 24 in the world, so I'm 10th. I'm good, right? And what happened is for the first time ever, and still to this day, we had the number 1 athlete, not me, a good friend of mine. We had the number 6 athlete, who was a Bulgarian who was not a citizen until 2 months before the Olympics, became a citizen. Those are the 2 competing slots. And
they only have 2 slots.
You only have 2 slots per country, and so the number 25th athlete got to compete in Italian instead of me. And so I went to Sydney and got the consolation prize as being the team leader. So
how'd you feel?
You know, I mean, that was a really hard pill to swallow. But, you know, I looked at it like this. I knew I was done with my athletic career. I was 30 years old at the time, and I knew I was going to go to Special Forces. That I was going to go. I don't think I'd been accepted to selection at the time, but that was my path. And I said, look, I'm going to be leading men, and so what better way to at least transition but than to lead this team, you know, and to put together all the logistics for them, make sure their training was put together, make sure they had food, you know, getting to where they needed to. And so, I mean, that's just the way I took it. You had to take it that way. So.
How long, because that was happening in real time when the Bulgarian became a citizen. It didn't happen in one day. It happened over time.
It was a process.
You were watching that train wreck.
I didn't know if he was going to get it or not. It came through. You know,
I mean, were you frustrated or?
Yeah, very frustrated.
It's an obstacle.
Yeah,
all the other obstacles you described.
Yeah, but he's a great guy. I mean, he competed and did well, but you don't.
But were you just dusting it off, or were you carrying it for a while?
No, it's life.
Yeah,
it's life.
That's great. I mean, that's the big lesson here. That's what the whole podcast is about.
Yeah.
So.
Do you have down days? I mean, there's times when I was frustrated.
Punch the wall.
Probably. Or 2. But, you know, I mean, then you get past it and you move on. And like I said, you know, I mean, pretty soon into it, I was thinking, all right, this is actually a good thing. You know, there's goodness that comes out of this. And there'll be other obstacles and opportunities.
So then what?
So I got back to Colorado Springs where we trained after getting back from Sydney, and I got in my Jeep and drove straight to Fort Bragg and went through selection. And you know, and then it's kind of like you throw yourself into the pipeline, the Special Forces pipeline, and they said when they allowed me to go was you know, I was pretty old at that point. I'm 30 years old, pretty senior captain at that time, and they said you recycle one time and you're gone, because you know most of the guys that are your age went through 4 years ago.
Sure.
So again, I was like, all right, well, let's just we'll take it one day at a time. Yeah. And I did end up making it straight through that course.
Nice.
9/11 happened while I was in the course. I actually thought it was we were doing our isolation for a mission, you know, a practice mission, and a van pulls up out back, and you know they have psyops out there, and so big speakers on the van, and they start playing that a airplane just hit the World Trade Center, and I'm like, so this is our mission, you know? I mean, like I'm supposed to plan off of that, and then lo and behold, the instructors came in and said, hey, anyone with family in New York or D.C., come with me right now, and everything got real serious. And so that was at that point, that night when we realized what was going on, you know, the commandant said training continues, and you know, everyone else on base was patrolling, but the guys who were going to be going to war first were still training, and so I ended up finishing up the course, and by the time I got out of the course, it was the first wave of Afghanistan was through, and I was in a battalion that was slotted to go to Iraq. So that was my first combat trip. Yeah.
And are you out now? Are you out of the military?
I'm out now. Yeah. So it's 3 years since I've been out, and just trying to pave a new way forward.
What, you're gonna become a race car driver, or what you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I work in the government now. Nice. So I just
having fun.
Just best I can. Yeah, making things work, and you know, I have 2 daughters, and 13 and 15. So awesome. You know, living through them and getting them out, do these races and showing them the world.
So people out there that aren't just on the cusp of the Olympics, aren't swimming 5 hours a day, they're having a tough time being motivated. they're having a tough time getting ahead. They want to be successful. From that whole experience you just described, let's come up with 3 tips you can give them.
All right. So I think the first thing is take chances, right? So if you never put yourself out there, then the opportunities are never going to arise. Like I never would have met the guy who recruited me into pentathlon if I didn't just take these guys and take these guys and say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to swim.
Right.
So look for those opportunities, take chances, don't be afraid of them. And
yeah, because a lot of times people, they get stuck, right? They say, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, so I'm not going to do anything. And if you're not doing anything, you're not in the mix.
Yeah.
Right? If you weren't in the pool, you wouldn't have got tapped on the shoulder.
Exactly. So, yeah, just throw yourself out there.
Even if it's not what you love to do, just get out and be doing something.
Absolutely, yeah. And sometimes that's the best, do something you don't, I'm not saying do anything that you don't want to do, but it may be
get uncomfortable.
Get uncomfortable, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing.
All right.
So number 2, I would say push as hard as you can, because it's something I learned throughout swimming first, all my experiences, is if you're not pushing as hard as you can, you're not going to see where you can ultimately get to. You can do so much more than you think you can.
Plus, you probably regret it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I met a guy like you who was just so close to the Olympics. I was with a woman the other night. She was the number 4 swimmer. The United States took 3.
Yeah.
And she was, both of them had this thing where like, well, I probably drank too much beer. Well, I probably didn't push hard enough. So to your point, like you don't want any regrets.
No, yeah.
At least you could say, I gave it everything
Absolutely.
I had.
Yeah.
It was just somebody better.
Yeah. And, it's all the mindset, it's physical, it's everything. But if you're pushing as hard as you can, you won't have regrets.
Hard to do.
It is because so many people don't, you know? I feel like growing up, there were natural athletes that I saw all around me. Yeah. And I was always the kid that had to push harder. Maybe I made the all-star team, but I was working my tail off.
Sure.
And I saw kids that they just had natural abilities.
Yeah.
And they ended up fading away at some point.
Yeah, if you got natural ability and that work ethic, then that's...
Absolutely. Those are the guys that don't have the asterisk.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You got a third one?
Take chances.
Push hard.
Well, and then don't give up.
Don't give up.
And I think there's a big difference between what happened to me. I didn't reach my ultimate goal, but I never gave up, and new opportunities arose because I just kept going and going and going.
With you can't even say made lemonade out of lemons because it was all lemonade. Like you were doing fine.
Yeah. It was. You got to take it as it comes. Take life as it comes, and know that every day is a new adventure, right?
Yeah.
So
I like this frame of reference idea that so what that you didn't make it into the Olympics that first time around, or so what that you got recycled twice.
Right.
You still got both legs and both right.
Still breathing. I made it through combat.
Yeah,
3,
exactly.
4, 5 tours. Yeah. So
as long as you've got some frame of reference where you can compare it to and say, wait a minute, I'm doing great.
Yeah. No, there's people out there that I've always said that are there's machines out there. There's people that just blow me away, but maybe they're not pushing as hard as I am.
Yeah.
And I always think I have a chance when I'm out there because I know I'm going to just keep going.
So tell me about this F3 thing. I think I know what it is because I think years ago I was involved with some guys in that.
Yeah. And that's how, I got involved with those same guys when I lived in Chapel Hill. It's called Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith. And it's just a peer leadership group of men, free, rotating leadership, always outside. And then the fifth principle is they finish with a circle of trust. That's what they call it. But it's just basically the guy who led the workout comes, the guys come get around him, and he just gives a motivating, hey, it's great having you guys out here. This is what keeps me going. I want you to go out there and be a better father, brother, employee, boss, whatever it is in life that you do. And so that's how that every workout finishes. But for me, it was just the bonding with other guys, the camaraderie, but also getting out there and crushing yourself in the mornings.
Nothing like it.
I love it. I'll tell you, I didn't enjoy PT in the Army, the organized PT. I love doing my own thing, and I did the athlete thing for a long time. But when I left it is when I realized that I really missed it, and that bonding that is just inherent with being on a team, especially a special forces team. I mean, the guys are tighter than their own brothers sometimes because of the experiences you have. And I don't want to compare what this is in F3, what that was and what F3 is, but there's a bond that develops between brothers there, and they come from all walks of life, and it's something that I think a lot of guys don't have these days because, whatever it is, their families are taking priority, their jobs taking priority, 10,000 things in a guy's life, but if he can dedicate 45 minutes in the morning with a bunch of other guys
game changer.
crushing them. It can.
Game changer.
You see guys losing weight, smiling in the morning, getting out there.
Whole life is better.
Their whole life is better, yeah. So that's something that I started in Arlington, Virginia, and I just have a small little ink blot that we're trying to build out as F3, the capital, we're calling it. That is part of the F3 Nation that started down in Charlotte, North Carolina. Good
Love
guys,
it.
yeah.
You're awesome.
Thanks.
Look, Jim was awesome. I mean, who does that? Who becomes a pilot, a ranger, or an Olympic athlete?
Jim does.
Jim does. That was amazing, and I'm listening to him and I'm talking to him, and we ended up running a race together. And I'm thinking, you can't ever let anything get you down. Because he just dusted it off, picked himself back up, and went on to do another great thing. Not just a regular thing. Not like, I'm going to go make dinner now that I failed. Right? I'm going to go really up the ante.
Yeah. It reminds me of Jocko Willings. I think I'm saying his name right. I really like a lot of things that he says. Every time something bad happens, they come up to him and he goes, good.
Right?
Yeah. He said, good. Why? Because, I failed at this. Good. Train harder. I didn't make it to the Olympics. All right.
Well,
keep going.
It's all in how we frame and define failure, right? Because if we're only talking about the micro failure, I failed, my God. But if you look at it as part of a big, big picture, I mean, to get successful, you have to fail again and again. You got to be willing to, right? You got to be willing to put yourself out there. You're not going to grow. So it really, how do we define failure? How do we define success? Is it a long-term project, which the best ones are, or is it this moment is going to define everything?
I think it's the journey.
Yeah.
Right?
I think also how attached we are in terms of, I think there's a big difference between saying I'm a failure and I failed. I'm a failure is sort of like this fixed position and we don't want to get up from it again, and versus I failed and okay, let me move towards it and do something different the next time.
Have you heard the expression, I win some and I learn some?
Oh, I like
love
that.
expression.
That's great.
And like you said, you take it over, what can I now apply from this for next time? So I win some and I learn some.
Yep, I love that. That's awesome too.
I wonder if we looked at stats right around the globe at how many people failed at attempting something big, but then picked themselves back up and then did something else big. Probably not a large number of people.
Probably not.
Right?
I want to meet someone who's like good with failure, who's like trying to fail.
You got 3 friends right here.
No. But it's true, because the thing is, like, when somebody goes out and they
Always about winning.
I'm going to draw Spartan in just for a second. Somebody goes out and they do a sprint and they can do 10 sprints. That's easy. Well, they should try super, and they do super. And like, if you can run marathons, maybe you should run an ultramarathon and actually put yourself in a position where you might fail. Like, you put the death race together where most people fail, and most of them came out better and stronger, right?
Yep.
So seeking out failure, I think, is important. Seeking out difficulty.
Somebody said to me once, it doesn't necessarily apply here, but I want to get your take on it, Dr. Al, is you got to ask yourself the question, what would I do if I knew I would fail?
Yeah.
Because if you love it that much that you do it anyway, it's probably the thing you want to be doing.
Spartan Up podcast.
We're still trying to succeed.
Sefra
week after week
keeps
week.
failing at the podcast, but she keeps coming back.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's absolutely right. I think that, I think that we can find and gain so much wisdom when we put ourselves in position where we actually even don't do as well as we thought we would do. Like, because again, I think that goes back a little bit to ego, which is, it's not always great, of course, to be cutting down our ego, but it is always good to have a little bit of a reality check of, what more can I gain? What more can I learn? How else can I grow?
Yeah.
I'm a little nervous when Dr. L speaks because it's like, man.
Really smart.
Well, I'm just like, they don't really need us anymore.
You want to know?
Hello, this is Dr. L.
No, but actually,
I'm going in the lake.
That ties into something I was going to say, which is that we always see people, especially people we interview, they're already there. Dr. Laura, we see her as this successful, amazing person with all this knowledge. but we didn't see all the stuff it took to get there. And we interviewed
Right.
these people, like Jim, and Jim just happened to be the guy who said, I'm going to tell you all the things that happened to get there. And so I think it's really important when we surround ourselves with these amazing people that we learn the story behind it, because you can get bogged down and you know your own struggles, you know your own failures, and all you see is the other people's successes. And to realize...
Especially in an Instagram culture.
Oh, 100%.
or
Facebook,
Marathon
and
Monk.
yeah,
You only see that successful picture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking
Wow.
of successful pictures...
Wait,
Yes.
can I just say one thing about
100%.
ego?
Yeah.
A great ecologist named Brock Dolman, who does a lot for water conservation, he says the whole thing that you need to do is the restoration of the ecosystem of the watershed of your mind. Do you get it? So it's like the restoration of an ecosystem, but it's the restoration of your ecosystem.
Restoration. That was
Wow.
actually
You get
a
it?
word. I
Well,
thought you had a
that-
stroke there.
I guess Johnny
Knock
and
on
I,
wood.
Johnny and I, you and I are out, and they'll just
Yeah.
stay.
Yeah,
They'll
here we
stay
go.
and do
Here we
this.
go.
We want to hear from you. Tell me what you're applying, what you're not applying, what you're struggling with. Go to our Instagram account and be part of the conversation. Let's change the world together.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Duke Cannon. Visit dukecannon.com right now to get 15% off your first order with the promo code SPARTAN. Free shipping on orders over $35.